These are the two meat grinders, food processors that I ended up with. This one here was the one my folks bought back in the 50s. It's made by Hamilton Beach. It's got several attachments. The one that's on there now is the meat grinder. It's also got the food salad maker, food processor that has these different drums that interchange and fit on the inside, and then you could run, carrots, cabbage, beets, cheese, the onions, all kinds of different things, fruits and vegetables. These here, they have they've got a locking collar that fits on the front side like this, and just about every power grinder that I've ever seen is set up this way. It's got a locking collar on the outside. There's a plate or screen that fits right behind the locking collar, and then there's a cutting wheel that fits in right behind it. This is mounted directly to the shaft that turns, and what it does is this plate is stationary. It locks into these tabs here, fit into these grooves, and it locks this plate so it doesn't move at all. It's locked to the outside casing of the grinder. The wheel is sharpened on the front corner. Get this so it focuses, so that you can see the cutting edge on each of the 4 blades. You flip it over, and it's the same thing in reverse. This turns in a clockwise motion. So if one side gets a little dull, you just flip it over and go with the other side. Alright, this is what's called the worm. What this does is it attaches the back side here, attaches to the power unit. And then as you look in, as the worm turns, it's an auger. See how it moves like that? Try to balance this, hold the camera at the same time. So as it turns, it creates an auger. It's wider back here, directly below the hopper, so it picks up a big amount, and then as it turns, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller until it gets down here to the bottom, where this is, when it gets clear down to the bottom, that's where your cutting wheel is attached with a cutting plate behind it. With this style of grinder, and most power grinders are just like this, there is either this one's identical, so there's either a coarse cutting wheel, cutting plate, or a fine cutting plate. And the The knife runs on the back side of this, and as the worm forces your meat out under pressure this way, it's forced into these openings, and the knife comes by and cuts it. This one will deliver coarse chunks, and this one will deliver a fine grind. The way that it's normally done is you take coarse meat for sausage, and you grind it into coarse chunks. Try to put this on here one-handed. Come on. I know you want to go on there. Come on. There you are. You grind it with the coarse plate. It'll come out with coarse chunks. And then you can go through and you can do it in one stage, or you can do it in 2 stages. You can put the fine plate in. Of course, this is going to work 1,000 times until I want to show it on camera. You put the fine plate in. You cut your sausage into coarse chunks. You put it into a bowl. You add your spices and your seasonings, and then you run it through again into the fine plate, and then you can use different attachments. This here is a sausage stuffer, and it's real simple. You just put it on the front end. Put it on the front end. You put your sausage casings up on here. You turn the machine on, and as it's grinding, it'll come straight out here and fill your sausage casing. And then you can run with you can run in batches, or you can run in short little, spoonful at a time, however you want to work it from there. It's pretty slick. The reason I got 2 of these is this not only will work for meat, it also does a really good job on other things like potatoes and for onions. So a relative borrowed this, and as they were grinding up potatoes and onions, they were going to freeze. Instead of using the push block, the way all of the instructions say to use the push block, there's either the plastic ones or these wood ones. They were cutting up things on the go. They had a knife. They had an old cheap steak knife with a plastic handle, and they were cutting up and dropping down the hammer, and they got in a routine. They couldn't be bothered with picking this up. It didn't fall down the chute just right, so instead of picking this up, they used the plastic handle of the steak knife. Well, the worm here caught the end of that plastic steak knife, and cent piece of plastic through this cutting wheel and it's stuck in here. So my cutting wheel ended up in 2 pieces, and it effectively made the entire machine useless. So Hamilton Beach doesn't sell these cutting wheels anymore, so I had to go to eBay and try to find one, but nobody will sell one that's this size. So in order to get this piece, I had to buy a complete power unit, and that came with another grinder. So that was a pretty good deal. And then just by chance, I went to a garage sale and I came up with this. This is a power unit that will fit onto the drive of an electric mixer. And there was an extra grinder. So what I did was I took this extra grinder apart, and it was just by coincidence that once you take this front collar off, that the drive nut on the end of that worm fits the exact size cutting wheel that I needed for my other grinder. So I paid $10 for that extra power unit and grinder. That's got a cutting wheel, and then for 50 cents I ended up getting a second cutting wheel that I was looking for to begin with. So it all depends on what you're looking for and where you're gonna find it, because these plates here, these work on the same principle, but these plates here do not work with those plates there, even though it's the same brand name. So I'm hoping this makes more sense to you. This is the worm, this is the cutting wheel, these are the grinding plates. And just for demonstration, some grinding plates have small holes, some have large gaps, which is directly opposite of the grinder that those hand grinders that I just saw the video tonight. They don't have a plate. Well, they do have a plate, but it's used in a totally different fashion. So that was why I was confused, and the explanation that I gave, which was wrong, ended up being, well, if it was a powered grinder, it would have been right. But that didn't fit her application, so that made it wrong anyway. I hope this is a better explanation.